Spirit of Life is proudly sponsored by Mattress Oz, mattressesareus.com.au.
Hello, welcome to Spirit of Life. My name is Geraldine Lee, your host, and our guest is Gabriel Tipnis. He's going to share his faith story. Welcome.
Hi, Geraldine.
Gabriel, how did you get a name like Gabriel?
I actually became a Catholic just 4 years ago, and then I changed it. So I took my confirmation name as my legal name.
Wow. Oh,
that's how I got it.
I'd like to know more about that later.
Sure.
And what's your family background?
My family background, I'm the only child, and mom and dad, they still live in India. So it's just three of us.
Oh. And how did you said earlier on when I had a chat to you before that you were Hindu, and how did you become a Catholic?
It's true. I was born and brought up in a Hindu family, and then in India, because the population is so much that we all have to focus on our careers and make sure that we get a good career. But then after I fulfilled my career dreams and stuff, I just found out that it wasn't enough to live for. I just needed more, and then life was just feeling incomplete at that time. So through that process, I got to know about the Catholic faith, and something started making sense. So I pursued it further and finally ended up in the Catholic Church with a few friends on the way, helping me to get there.
That's amazing. And do you know much about your Hindu faith? Because I know some people are, of a certain religion, but, may not know that much.
I got to know it a bit. I used to do the regular prayers and stuff. But in the end, it came to just knowing God personally. And then it just made sense having Jesus as part of my life and then taking the next step forward.
Was there a series of events that brought you to encounter Jesus?
Series of events. So I left India in 2004 and came here to study. So in that process, it was just being away from family, being away from home. I knew that there was no one actually I could depend on. But just through that process of being here alone, knowing that there is someone looking after me, it just became clear that God was there looking after me, making sure everything was working out. And then when the time came that I wanted to get closer to God, and that wasn't somehow possible, but I kept on praying to God. It's like, give me some hint, give me some help. And through friends and all, I got to know about Jesus and the Catholic Church. And since then, it started making sense. So I pursued that further and then just decided to get baptized.
Yes, what values or what about Jesus attracted you to
just the
faith?
father-son relationship that he spoke about with God, because I always felt that I had that with God, and then I somehow wasn't able to get closer to God. So I just felt like Jesus was the actual door that I needed to lock on, because without him we can't get closer to God. So when I came to know that, it started making sense. So in a way, whatever I needed to know was already somehow there in my life as life experiences. And then Catholic faith actually started bringing that all out. So it was nothing new that was coming out. It was just confirming a lot of things that were going on in my life.
How did your parents feel about you changing religions?
They did not understand it. They were very disappointed. They felt that they had done something wrong, or they failed in their job as parents. So that's the reason I was changing my religions. But I think every parent's delight that their children come to know God. So in that way, they have never failed. They've brought me up in the best possible way. And I'm really happy that I've got such amazing, loving parents. So they are my role models for sure. But there's also that personal relationship with God where we need to find that on our own as well.
Yeah.
So things are okay now, but it's still a big question mark. It's a bit confusing for them.
Yeah, and do you practice anything from your Hindu religion? Or
not anymore.
Yes.
No.
Are there any similarities between?
I guess Hindu religion is a bit like the Old Testament religions, where we do things for God, we know God's there, there's like heaps of importance on traditions and practices. But when things start making sense, when Jesus comes into the scene. So that's what it means to me now. So it's like Jesus is the fulfillment of what everything the Hindu faith was pointing at for me.
How old are you?
I'm 32 now.
Yeah, you suddenly look younger than that.
Good genes.
That's right. And as a young adult, you know, is that challenging having a Christian or Catholic faith as such?
No, because I've had such a major conversion story. God's doing all the work, and because I've also changed my name, people themselves come and ask me, why did I change my name? Or, hey, you're Indian, but Gabriel name is not usually Indian. What's the story there? So it's actually been very easy to share my faith journey with other people.
And do you think that, how do you feel that young adults could come to their faith? You know, what do you think they need to hear, especially in Australia today?
I think it's coming to terms with our own reality. Like, I think it's very important that we young people come face to face with who we are and get to know ourselves and ask the hard questions. Am I really getting the most out of my life? What's missing? And if there is something missing, then we need to be honest about it and just acknowledge that I can ask someone more. There is a God who wants to give us the best, so why not ask that question?
That's great. And is it hard to follow your faith?
Sometimes it can be challenging because it's also a matter of being sensitive to other people and not trampling them under our feet, because I know that I have been given that opportunity to get to know God, but some people haven't been lucky enough. So I need to be making sure that I take care of them where they are at. I can't push what I have experienced on them if they're not ready for it. So that brings a few challenges, but apart from that, I'm also learning how to look after my neighbors, my people quite well, so that's helping me a lot. That's
fantastic. And do you find that your relatives, like back in India, also, do you communicate to them about your faith?
We have had a few interchanges, and some of them who have experienced something know that there's a big difference since I've got baptized. They can feel the effects of it in me. They can just see that clear difference in me. And some of them, 2 or 3 people, have actually experienced God's love reaching out through whatever conversations we have had. So slowly but surely, yeah, it's reaching out to them. But most people who judge me from the distance, they miss out, unfortunately.
Yeah.
It's very difficult to look from the outside and come to know what's exactly going on.
Yeah, it would be. And, you know, with your sharing and amazing, you're studying theology too.
Yes, I am.
Yes. We need to go for a break now, but I'd be very interested to hear the rest of your faith story.
Sure.
Gabriel's been sharing about his faith story and his conversion from Hinduism to Christianity. After the break, we'll hear more about his life. Welcome back to Spirit of Life. My name is Geraldine Lee, your host, and our guest is Gabriel Tipnis. He's been sharing his faith story. Hello, Gabriel. Welcome back.
Thanks.
You were sharing about your conversion from Hinduism to Catholicism, and I would like to know how you actually have been practicing it since then.
So, first of all, coming to the church, I knew not a single person in the church in Australia. So it was a very scary experience to just go to a church and go to mass, and I knew no one. So I got to know the priest first. We had an interview as part of my conversion. But then slowly I got to know a few families through the RCIA program, which is how the church prepares candidates before they get baptized or confirmed. So through that I got to know a few friends, and I was given a sponsor family. So that was like my first family that I actually got to know. We're still very close friends. They're back in Brisbane, but that was the first family I got to know. And then since then, it's been also a journey of getting to know different communities across different churches. So I was living in Brisbane that time, so I started driving around for Sunday masses to various churches and meeting all the young people over there. I started going to almost every single retreat that was happening in Brisbane that time, and I made a lot of friends through that. So once I was out there, I got to know so many people who were doing different things. But in that, I also started making really good friends. So that's how I started off. And in terms of practicing my faith, it's a matter of not just going to Mass and receiving the sacrament, but at the end of every Mass, the priest asks us to go out and share the faith, live it out. So it's also important that we live it out, because that's where we really understand the power of the Eucharist. So in terms of that, I generally end up sharing my faith with people that I used to work with. They clearly saw the difference that I was before, what I was before, and what I became after becoming a Catholic. And to me, it's a simple matter of keeping it simple as to what Jesus said, loving God and loving our neighbor. So that's what I try to do in any and every way, little way.
Yeah, that's fantastic. It sounded like when you first came to God that you're like a sponge. You just wanted to
Yes.
really know God, and you had no kind of blocks. And are you a fairly open and intense person at times?
Yes, because it has been such an intense journey into the church. So I always want to follow the example of the saints. So Saint John of the Cross, Saint Therese of Avila, and Saint Therese of Lisieux. Those three are my top saints that I always refer to from time to time. But not just read their books, but also try to implement what they talk in actual life through my friendships, through other people.
Yes. And have you thought of being a missionary or a priest, or being a lay preacher?
For a young guy to come into a church, that's the first question everyone asks. You become a Catholic, now you should become a priest. But it was important that I faced that question of prospect of God calling me to single life, and I was discerning since 2011. But recently I've concluded that it's probably marriage that I'm getting to know and so much more passionate about. And I just feel that God's given me that desire to be married in the future. But it's also important to find where do we fit in the church and find our place there. So God's taken me through a journey with the youth ministry. So I got into youth ministry in 2011, but then I got to know about NET, and that's how I've been journeying with the youth since then.
In our society today, there is an assumption that if you're very smart, you become a doctor or a lawyer, or if you're very spiritual, you become a priest or a evangelist. So what do you think about that?
That's true, and for me, becoming an engineer, I started engineering in IT, computers. So I did that, worked in the industry for 4.5 years, but after working with the youth, I worked in Brisbane East for a year, but after that I did 2 years of full-time volunteering work with national evangelization teams, the NET teams. And through that we met about 8,000 people, and everyone's journey has been so inspiring that I can't just walk away from the youth. So in that regard, I've decided to study theology this year so I can get in tune with what the church teaches. But next year I want to apply for primary school teaching.
And tell me more about the NET team.
NET team, it's one of the best journeys. It's an organization that's based in Brisbane, but we have NET across in America, Canada, Ireland as well, and as well as in Uganda. And we ask young people in the church to give up a year of their life and truly share their journeys with the young people so that they can get to know Jesus and embrace the church. And it's a very exciting adventure.
Yeah, and how has that affected you?
It has made me so much more active in my faith, because it's not just about going to Mass or getting to know the Bible or the Catechism, but actually to how to live it out. And with NET, we live together in the same house for the whole year, as well as minister to other people, thousands of people during the year. So that's where putting our faith into action comes in so much more. There's thousands of opportunities every single day, and it's the most fantastic experience ever.
Yeah, can you remember one or two situations where you saw someone come closer to God?
Definitely. There's been a number of experiences where sometimes we would go to schools where year 11 retreats, and the people that we would least likely to talk about God, who are so occupied in just being the sporty people and all, they go through a prayer experience, and then at the end of the retreat they have come up to us asking how to pray the rosary. It's that's the least likely person I would ever expect to ask anything about God, and leave aside praying the rosary. So number of occasions that has been our case, or times where we have been really tired with ministry and we thought the retreat was not as fantastic as we would have liked it to be, but in the end a lot of students say that they truly experienced something. So in that we come to know that it's not us, it's totally God working in their hearts. It's a very humbling experience.
Yeah, I do believe that's true. I remember being a youth leader and at a drop-in center, and no one seemed to even notice me, talk to me. It seemed like they were angry at me most of the time. But then when I left, because I thought didn't make a difference, I didn't even say goodbye. And 2 years later, I met one of the youth, and they said, "Why did you not say goodbye? You really touched our hearts." And I'm thinking, what? Did I do anything? So I agree with you. And And what about your mission work with the NET team? How does that link up with your theology, that course you're doing?
First of all, it gave me the opportunity to draw a lot closer in prayer, because prayer is the foundation, and it's not just about us saying prayers, but it's actually about listening what God is wanting us to do in our lives as well. So in terms of that, I needed a lot more proper training in terms of thinking what the church actually is thinking, or where the church is moving, or why it teaches what it teaches. So that's why theology and philosophy fits in this year. And then in terms of NET, how it has changed me, it's about the 2 commandments again, loving God. So I express my love for God by studying what the church teaches a lot more through theology and philosophy, and as well as taking the sacraments more seriously. But then there's also the other part, which is loving our neighbor. And it's easy enough to love people on a short-term basis, but living that out on a daily basis, that's what NET allows to do.
Yeah, it's inspiring that you're taking it deeper and actually studying it. But we need to go for a break, and I'll hear more of you.
Sure.
You've been watching Spirit of Life. Stay with us, and we'll be back in a few minutes. Welcome back to Spirit of Life. My name is Geraldine Lee, your host, and our guest is Gabriel Tipnis. He's been sharing his faith story and how he also has become a missionary. Welcome back,
Thanks.
Gabriel. And I'd like to know what sort of theological course you're doing.
So I'm just doing a graduate certificate in theology, which is 6 months, but I'm covering all the Christian classics. So that covers saints like St. John of the Cross, St. Teresa of Avila, mainly authors from 13th through the 18th century, which there's so much wisdom that the church has from those saints that it's all almost hidden away. So my basically attempt is to get to know them so much more, because they are my favorite saints, and get to know them more. And theology, it teaches us into various documents that the church has come, especially a few documents from Vatican I and Vatican II, and why the church came up with those documents and the reasoning behind that, as well as having a philosophical kind of understanding of those documents as well. So it covers the important areas. It's a good crash course.
And has it helped you also experience the character of God through studying this?
Definitely, because it clarifies a lot of things that we experience but can't express in words. So God is a mystery, and we can't completely explain in words what it's like to experience Him. But in philosophy and theology does kind of bring the focus back on how to use our words most effectively, so that other people can understand it a little bit more, and it can help them in their own experience of God.
Would you say that you experience God in your body, like as an experiential thing, or is it a head thing?
I would say it's a head and a heart thing. It's a complete experience.
That's fantastic. Yes. And you also have a love for theology of the body, JP2s?
I do, yes. Ultimately, I want to study at the JP2 Institute, so my theology course is kind of a step on the way.
And you also would like to study teaching, is that true?
Yes, primary school teaching, because I just love kids, and it would be great for me to share my experiences with them. But I also love maths and science and all the stuff that other people don't really like. So in that way, it'll be fun to work with the kids by teaching whatever needs to be taught.
Yes, and you obviously have a gift of teaching.
I hope so.
And I hear that you are speaking at a singles conference.
Yes, it's coming up on the 4th and 5th of October, and it's at Bulleen. And there's more information available on csn.coglife.org.
That's fantastic. What will you be speaking on?
I'm going into a little bit of the background of theology of the body. So St. John Paul II, he wrote a book called Love and Responsibility before he gave Theology of the Body Wednesday Discourses. So it goes into a much more simplistic review, or what his heart actually wanted the young people to know. And if you want to find out more, you can come to the conference and find out.
That's great. And do you give a lot of practical examples?
The more we put things into practice, I think that's when the beauty of the whatever material, it comes to life. So if it's faith material, then unless and until we put that into practice, we don't see the power of faith in action. So it's all personal experiences and how faith made sense in my life.
Oh, that's great. And I hear that this conference you have young adults, but also older single
Yes,
adults.
that's true.
That's fantastic. Will there be time for interaction?
Definitely, there will be. Generally, we have small group activities or small groups where people can interact with each other, get to know each other, share their experiences, and also make a few commitments as to what they want to take from the conference and then apply that into their regular life.
Yeah, and I hear that you're having a dinner dance. How does that mix with you as a young adult? You know, speaking about theology and then having a dance.
We all need a bit of fun in life. We need to experience joy together as well. So like-minded people coming together, it should be also an occasion to celebrate.
And how do you think young adults would approach having a singles conference compared to just having a conference? Is that kind of a no-no word, singles?
It can have a bit of stigma attached to it, but ultimately, we all know that ultimately we have our own questions to answer, and it's our own growth. And the better we get to know ourselves or get our own faith or beliefs in place, or more understanding about life, the better it makes for everyone else in our life. So in terms of that, it's important for us to be formed so that we can be better available for everyone else in our life.
Yes.
It makes us more effective.
Do you think there is a vision for being a single for the Lord?
If God wants it, then why not?
Yeah,
Definitely.
Which is great because you have shown that you've been open to that because
Yes.
you've discerned priesthood or family.
Yes.
So you do look forward. It sounds like you do look forward to have a family.
Yes, I'm waiting for that opportunity where God lets me get married with some amazing young lady. But until then, I know that flexibility is also a gift right now, and I want to make the most out of it.
Yes, and I hear you practically also help people, like you help them with IT, and you not only volunteers sharing your faith, you also help out with different organizations, like
Yes.
the theater organization, and helping them with the internet, and you're using your gifts.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, we look for opportunities where we can be there for other people. And it doesn't matter what it is. It might be just watering someone's plants or helping someone clean the house. Or I have IT background, so I help people with their computers. But it's about loving them and using our gifts to help love them and bring God's love to them.
Yes.
We don't need big degrees or big things. We can always start with small things.
Yes. Well, I wish you all the best, and also for the conference, your talk. And goodbye, and God bless you.
Thank you. God bless you too.
You've been watching Spirit of Life. Join us again next week. Goodbye, and God bless you.
Bring it to birth and blow where you will. Blow, blow, blow till I be but breath of the Spirit blowing in me.
Spirit of Life was proudly sponsored by Mattress Oz, mattressesaras.com.au.